And welcome to the show that never ends. Why am I laughing? I don't know. Was that true? Yes. Anyway, let's get serious here because that man right there is called one of the great GM whisperers of all time. I'm hoping, Dr. Fred Johnson, you can be a talk show whisperer because I completely lost my space. Fred. Fred Johnson is the founder of the InitiativeOne Leadership Institute, is a very popular speaker for Fortune 500 companies. First of all, Dr. Johnson, thank you very much for joining us. Good afternoon.
Thank you, and thank you for having me on. I'm honored.
Well, do you have any help for a completely out of whack talk show host who lost track of where he was in the show?
Yes, you need a lot of therapy.
I am ready. I don't know if my introduction did you justice, but I was trying to keep it under a couple of minutes, which it would take. You've worked with, as I mentioned, many Fortune 500 companies. You've also worked with a number of people in the NFL. Let's talk a little bit about how we got to this point. I mean, you've had quite a career in this field. There's no easy way to get to where you are, but how would you describe your journey?
You know, that's a great question. It was not planned. My massive football experience is 2 plays in the 5th grade. The third string, 64-pound guard. I have massive, deep football experience. God has a sense of humor. And so it's ironic that I've worked with 6 NFL teams with no football experience. But I do know how to develop cohesive teams that have high trust, that can get rid of drama and replace it with purpose, and put the mission of the team ahead of the egos, which is a key factor in a great team success. I was actually on a plane. I live in Green Bay. I was actually on a plane sitting by the future GM of the Seattle Seahawks, and I didn't know it. And he was looking for a coach. He saw me signing some books. He asked me what I did. I told him that I'm a leadership expert and author and writer, and he asked if I would be his coach. I thought he was joking. I didn't think I'd ever hear from him again. He calls me the next day. I started a long-term coaching relationship. Eventually, I started working with all of his scouting department with the Packers, and then he was recruited to be the GM of the Seattle Seahawks. I helped him prepare for that. After they won the Super Bowl, their coaches started going across the country, and those coaches started calling me to say, would you help us do what you did with Seattle? And that's how I ended up with 6 NFL teams and eventually one NL team, the Pittsburgh Pirates.
Dr. Johnson, I'm fascinated by that, but I also mentioned in the introduction you work with CEOs and Fortune 500 companies. I'm guessing here that the approach is similar to what you do, which is help people be better. How would you compare and contrast dealing with a professional football team and dealing with a corporate CEO?
They're all highly driven. They all have egos, both the good side and the bad side. And they have to be challenged. They want to be better. The good ones want to be better, and they will receive feedback. And I have found that it's really a seamless transition between the two because they're human beings. They have egos. They have insecurities. They often struggle with conflict. They often struggle with difficult conversations. They often struggle with rising above the noise and focusing on what is essential and getting out of emotion. It's all the same thing. And I was surprised the first time I ever started working with an NFL team. I heard it was so different. It certainly is different in some ways, but the human dynamic is very, very similar.
Dr. Johnson, I know there's so many people out there watching or listening to us around the country, and this is such a weird time of the year. It should be the most joyous time. Everybody knows that. but they're struggling. Maybe it's within their individual work culture, individual. I mean, I'm not a motivational speaker, but are there any basic tenets that you apply as you speak all over the country, if not the world, and deal with people at the highest level that us average folks could maybe learn and better understand?
Thank you for that question. What we've learned in 25 years of doing this and research-based work is that the average person from a scale of 0 to 10 has a self-belief level of 2.7, which means I'm a fraud. I hope people don't figure me out, and I've got to act tough. I can't let anybody see the real me. And what we have found, if you change their self-narrative from I am not enough to I am enough, and you begin to help them internalize that, it changes their confidence in how they make decisions and how they receive feedback and accountability. So it is a tool to begin to change the levels of self-belief in a person, and then to help them believe the truth about themselves. We tell them things like, where's the proof that you're a fraud? And it's just information, and you're enough. And while that sounds sappy, when we do it in a way that people start internalizing that, and it becomes part of their inner belief system. And when you change your belief system, you change your behaviors. When you change your behaviors, you change your outcomes. So it's always starting with, and I've worked with NFL players who are struggling because they're scared to death of failure. They're scared to death of making a mistake. And they get paralyzed by it. And so we come in and help them to attack that narrative and to become more confident in themselves. And we see a tremendous change in their performance.
I've talked to people in your field, and everybody has a similar approach, but it varies. And a lot of people talk about just your head being consumed with what's often called mental clutter. It's hard to do anything right if you don't have confidence, if you can't get through that. So at the most elementary level, I realize we don't have the time to go through the whole thing, but is there some basic fundamental way to start this, no matter who you are, whether you're an elite NFL star or just folks watching right now trying to make a better life for themselves?
We deal with people in 29 different industries. We deal with people who are non-college, non-high school graduates, all the way to PhDs and Yale Lifetime Achievement Awards in medicine. And the reality is we all have the same issues. And what we teach people is that the way we learn that begin to believe the lie that we're not enough is we began to internalize all the people in our lives who told us what we couldn't do, what we shouldn't do, what we'll never do. And we heard that enough that we began to believe it. Well, actually, in a simple way, the way to reverse that is the very same way in the opposite way. You begin to over and over, it's called spatial repetition. You begin to help that person change their neural path by looking and saying and visually many times a day, I'm enough, I've got this. If I make a mistake, I'm not a mistake. I'm a learner. If you do that enough over a period of time, you cannot help but internalize it, and it begins to change your message system.
Dr.
We've seen it over and over, Paul.
Dr. Johnson, on that, I know when you walk into a room, forget the CEOs, forget the great players. When you walk into a room, I know I've been to these things, and people want to be motivated. They come to an event. It's just like if you go to a religious or an evangelical assembly, you want to take. You want to walk down and become something different. You want to believe. You want to have faith. When you're talking to people, I'm really curious from the other side. I know what it's like to be in the audience. But what's it like to be looking out at all these people? They literally are hanging on your word, and they want you to change their life.
Well, the irony is that I battle the same issues that they're battling, and I'm wondering, golly, I hope I don't make a mistake. I hope I hope I have something to say. So the first thing that I always tell speakers is you better be talking to yourself first before you talk to your audience, that you have something to say and that you're going to nail the room and you're going to help meet their needs. So it starts with a real commitment. The second thing is a belief that those people in the audience are just like you. They have fears, they have pressures, they have regrets, they have things, skeletons in their closet, and they're looking for hope. And they're looking for tangible ways to move their lives in a stable, tangible direction. And unless you're really pathological, 9 times out of 10, we gravitate towards those hopeful but genuine messages to help us be better and do better.
I know because we all want to get to the finish line quickly. That's not the way to do it. But is there a general? I know that you've written a number of books, and I'll encourage people in a minute to find out more. And I know many are already hitting me up trying to find out more. But is there a basic tenet that you subscribe to that, you know? So if I'm sitting there watching you right now, or I'm in your audience, or what should we think about as we're listening or reading your message?
One of the things that I often do, and I've done this with athletes, I've done this with bankers, I've done this with lawyers, CEOs, is I will often give them a sticky pad and I will have them write it on a piece of paper. And it says, I am the real deal. I'm enough. I am no 2.7. I will ask them to stick that on their rearview mirror or somewhere in their car for 3 weeks. They can't take it off. If someone gets in the car, they have to ask, well, what is that about? And they have to explain it. And every time they explain it, they are resetting their neuropaths. And you're going to have some of the weirdest conversations with yourself that you've ever had, because you're so used to being told that you're not good enough that when you finally hear that you are good enough, you feel completely uncomfortable with that kind of praise and recognition. And so what we find is that begins to be the shift of helping people re-message the truth about themselves. So I gave you just one little tool that we use when we work with audiences and corporations, whether it's a team of 10 or a corporation of 100,000 people. It works, and we've seen it over and over in 25 years. Some of the most powerful things are not complex, they're simple.
If you are interested in more, and I am, I can tell you right now, InitiativeOne.com, just like it's spelled, InitiativeOne.com. Are most of the answers, not to solving your issues, but in terms of getting information, is that the best place to go?
They can go to our website. There's all kinds of information there that they can get to learn more about us.
Well, I'm already eager for the next consultation here. I have learned a great deal. Dr. Fred Johnson, thank you. There are a million questions I never got to, but I would love to continue this because it is that important. Thank you for your time.
Let's do it again, Paul.
Look forward to it. What a conversation. How interesting. Did you write that down? Yeah. I'm going to your car tonight. It better be on your rearview mirror. We'll take a short break. We are back with more right after this.